Welcome back to Hidden Universe, where the mysteries of space turn into stories that stay with you. Tonight, we enter the alien sleep time story, a journey through dreams, silence, and the voice that changed the stars. Let's begin. The universe did not begin with silence. It began with the endless hum of energy, the vibration of stars collapsing and birthing themselves again, the murmur of cosmic winds scattering worlds like dust. Silence, as humans understood it, was never truly real. Out here, between galaxies, there was only a lull, the deep background pulse of creation itself. For the beings of Oryx 7, silence was sacred. Their physiology had been shaped by sound. Their language was a weaving of harmonics, each syllable more vibration than word. To them, to still the voice was to invite death, for their species believed the universe listened, and in listening, it remembered. And yet, despite their devotion to sound, the Oryxian elders had a ritual unlike any other, the Great Sleep, once in every 100 years. Their fleet's vast organic ships woven from living coral-like matter would gather around the ancient star Vera, fold their sails, and enter a state of slumber. Not rest as humans would know it, but a suspension, bodies curled into pods that pulsed with slow rhythms, minds drifting not inward, but outward, into a collective dreamscape, where entire civilizations could share one dream. This was not superstition. The Oryxians believed that sleep was travel, and that in the deepest dream one might cross the gulfs of space without ever moving. It had worked for millennia. They had learned technologies within those dreams, solved conflicts across light years without firing a single plasma bolt, even glimpsed what they believed to be the first blueprint of the cosmos itself, a sound so low and deep that only those fully asleep could hear it. But this time, something changed. The drifting child, in the fourth cycle of the sleep, a single Oryxian did not join the dream. She was small by their standards, hardly grown past the first molt, her limbs delicate, and her eyes still bright with curiosity. Her name was Iriah. Instead of drifting into the collective slumber, Iriah dreamed alone. She floated in her pod, as the fleet slumbered around her, countless organic ships tethered to one another in an intricate ballet around the fading star. And in that lonely sleep, she saw something none of her kind had ever reported, not the endless harmonics of Oryxian, dreaming not the golden lattice of their collective mind. No. Iriah saw a blue world, distant and alive, wrapped in oceans and clouds, its surface crawling with a species that had only just begun to scratch the edges of the sky. She saw Earth. She did not know its name. She did not know what a human was. All she knew was that her dream felt wrong, as though her mind had slipped into another current of the great cosmic river, one not meant for her. The dream pulled her deeper. The first human he was sitting in a chair, not unlike a pod, though clumsy in design. The air around him was filled with light and noise, but not the harmonics of Oryx. These were jagged sounds, words strung together with rough edges. The man was tired. His name was Daniel Rourke, though Iriah could not know this yet. He had been awake for 32 hours, working at a space observation outpost on the edge of Earth's orbit. One of many tiny listening stations tasked with watching the skies for signs of, well, anything. Humanity had been listening for decades, and all they had ever heard was silence. But Daniel, that night, muttered a single sentence to himself before drifting off in his chair. Sometimes I think the stars are dreaming us, not the other way around. It was then that Iriah stepped into his dream. She appeared not in her true form, but in a shape his mind could grasp, a shimmer of light, a childlike figure with eyes like liquid silver. Daniel did not startle. Perhaps exhaustion had dulled his fear. "Who are you?" he whispered in the dream. Iriah tilted her head. She tried to speak, but her words were not words, only vibrations, deep harmonic notes that rattled the air. Yet somehow, the meaning passed into Daniel's mind. I should not be here. The broken bridge dreams are fragile bridges. They are meant to carry a single traveler across the gulf of sleep, not two. When Araya touched Daniel's dream, something cracked. The Eryxian fleet stirred in their slumber. Their harmonics trembled. Thousands of pods pulsed in unison, as if a ripple of static had run through them. Araya felt the weight of her people's dream pressing against her, urging her back into the fold. But the human's dream was stronger. Daniel reached out in the dream. "Stay, please. I don't want to wake yet." And so she stayed. For hours, they drifted together, she showing him visions of her people's coral ships and lattice harmonics. He showing her earth, oceans, forests, children running through streets. They spoke without words, trading images, like seashells on a shore. But when Daniel finally woke, he woke screaming, because the sound had followed him. The Eryxian harmonic, deep and resonant, echoed in his ears long after the dream ended. His monitors blinked wildly with interference, his instruments registering a frequency not from Earth, not from any satellite. Something had answered humanity's silence. The council stirs back in the Eryxian fleet. The elders stirred uneasily in their pods. They had felt it, a rupture in the great sleep. Araya had opened a door that had never been meant to exist. Some believed she had doomed them, that the Eryxians would be devoured by this foreign dreamscape. Others whispered that perhaps this was destiny, that their harmonics had finally reached another species. But one thing was certain, the great sleep was broken, and far away. On the little blue planet called Earth, Daniel Rourke wrote the words, in his logbook that would later be read by governments, scientists, and military officials alike. Contact has been made. Not through radio, not through light, through dream. The seed of fear. Daniel did not tell his superiors the whole truth. He could not explain the silver-eyed child without sounding mad. Instead, he handed them raw data, strange harmonic pulses, recorded by his instruments, frequencies outside normal cosmic noise, repeating in patterns. They studied, they argued, they feared, and as humans do, they began to plan, not for friendship, but for defense. Meanwhile, in her fragile pod near Vera, Araya dreamed again. This time she saw not one human, but many. Cities of light, skies filled with streaking machines, and weapons. So many weapons, she wept. Her tears floated inside the pod like tiny prisms. For the first time, she wondered if the great sleep had not been a voyage of wisdom at all, but a shield, keeping them hidden from the waking violence of the galaxy. And now she had torn it down. The dreams did not end. Each night, as Daniel drifted into sleep, he felt himself slipping not into darkness but into light-woven silver threads stretching across an endless horizon. The sensation was both soothing and terrifying. He was no longer falling asleep. He was arriving, and always. She was there. Rhea, her figure glimmered like glass touched by moonlight, neither wholly solid nor insubstantial. Her eyes, vast, crystalline, unblinking, studied him with an intensity that made Daniel's chest tighten. She was not human, but there was something achingly familiar in the way she leaned closer, as though afraid to lose him to the dream's shifting tide. "You are?" "Loud," she said, though her lips never moved. The sound resonated inside him. A bell struck within bone. Daniel frowned. "Loud." She tilted her head, ripples of light cascading from her hair like falling water. "You dream with noise. Too much noise. It tears through the lattice." The lattice, her hand extended, and the dream space shifted. Silver threads stretched infinitely in every direction, like a spider's web across the cosmos. Each strand vibrated with pulses of light, faint, rhythmic, alive. Some glowed gently, others flickered, unstable, and far away. One section writhed violently, its harmony broken. "That is your world," she whispered. "Your kind thrashes against the... We hear it even in sleep." Waking uneasy, Daniel woke in his quarters with a gasp, sweat cooling on his forehead. The dream clung to him, not fading like normal visions, but etching itself into his memory. He scribbled furiously into his notebook. Lattice equals network. Energy field, consciousness grid. Humans are too loud. They hear us in dreams. When he reported to the observation deck, his colleagues noticed the exhaustion in his face. One of them, Dr. Keene, leaned closer. "You're not sleeping again, are you?" Daniel hesitated. "I'm having recurring dreams." Keene gave a tired chuckle. "Dreams? We're tracking the strangest resonance anomaly in recorded history, and you're worried about nightmares?" But Daniel didn't laugh. He only glanced at the monitor, where the Eryxian signal continued pulsing in perfect intervals, like breathing, like waiting. The Eryxian Council far beyond Earth. Aboard a vessel that drifted silently in the void, Irea returned from the lattice trembling. She sank to her knees before the High Council, her luminous form dimming. "You made contact," intoned a voice older than stars. Irea bowed her head. "Yes, a human. His mind. It does not collapse like the others. He hears." A murmur passed among the elders. Some glowed with intrigue, others with unease. "They should not hear us. Their kind is chaos, war, noise. Yet this one has entered the lattice unbidden," Irea said softly. "He walks the threads without unraveling. Perhaps," she hesitated, "perhaps their noise can be taught to harmonize." The chamber fell into silence. Outside the Eryxian fleet, the stars shimmered against the black, unaware that two species teetered on the edge of something neither had expected. The council chamber pulsed with shifting light. Each Oryxian elder shimmered in a slightly different hue, their bodies more suggestion than form, like glass molded by thought, like beings sculpted from song. "Danger." One elder resonated, their voice sharp as breaking crystal. "Opportunity," countered another, soft and flowing like water over stone. Irea remained bowed, the glow of her body trembling. She felt Daniel still inside her, faint as an echo, his thoughts pulsing like waves carried across the lattice. He was awake now, but his presence lingered, stubborn, impossible to silence. "You risked much," an elder said. "I did as commanded," Ira replied. "You asked me to reach. I reached, and he reached back." A long silence filled the chamber. Then the eldest of them all, a being whose glow had dimmed with centuries, spoke. "If a human can hear, then the balance shifts. Their kind may no longer be an accident in the weave. Watch him, Irea. Listen well. If he breaks, sever the thread. If he endures." The elder's light flickered. "Then perhaps the lattice itself has chosen." Earth's uneasy watch. Daniel stared at the monitor in the observation deck, though his eyes were unfocused. He wasn't really seeing the data streams, the oscillating waves, the pulsing frequencies. He was hearing her voice still, echoing in his skull. "You dream with noise." It wouldn't leave him. Dr. Keene jabbed him in the arm. "Hey Rourke, you with us?" Daniel blinked. "Yeah, sorry, just tired." The team chuckled and returned to their work. None of them knew what Daniel was holding back. The drawings in his notebook, the strange words repeating in his mind, the sense that someone out there, not just in the stars, but inside his very dreams, was waiting for him. Later, alone in his quarters, he whispered the name into the dark, Iratia, and from somewhere, whether the stars or the space between thoughts, a soft reply came. "Daniel. Shared dream that night." The lattice came faster. No drifting, no slow descent. He was pulled. Iria stood waiting, but she was different. Her glow was softer now, almost cautious. She tilted her head, studying him. "You should not be here again so soon," she said. "I didn't choose it," Daniel replied, turning slowly in the silver-webbed void. "It's like falling asleep is walking through a door I can't close." Her gaze softened. "Then the door has chosen you." Daniel felt a chill. "Chosen me for what?" Before she could answer, the lattice shuddered. One of the distant threads convulsed, flickering violently. The light dimmed, as though something vast had plucked at the web. A hollow boom vibrated through the dreamscape. Araya's face tightened. They know you are here. Who? Daniel demanded. The others, she whispered. The ones who fear your noise. The lattice shook like a storm passing through glass. Daniel staggered, clutching at nothing, his boots finding no ground. Araya reached out, her luminous hand wrapping his wrist solid and warm, though they both knew neither was really there. Stay close, she whispered. Her voice trembled, though it never lost its resonance. If the others find you, they will cut you out. Cut me out, Daniel gasped. From what the dream? Her crystalline eyes met his, unblinking. From existence. The silver threads stretched and twisted around them. Far across the web, new figures shimmered into view, taller than Araya, their forms darker, their lights sharp and jagged. Where she glowed with flowing curves of radiance, they pulsed in rigid lines. Angular and severe, Daniel felt a pressure in his skull, like a tuning fork vibrating against bone. The newcomers didn't speak in words. They pressed thoughts into him, blunt and merciless. Intruder. Noise. Erase. He stumbled, clutching his temples. God, it's too much. Araya stepped forward, her glow flaring bright. He is mine, she declared. The words cut through the lattice like a clear bell, scattering the jagged pulses. The thread is bound. Harm him, and you tear me as well. For a long, dreadful moment, silence held. Then one of the dark figures leaned forward, their voice dripping like molten iron. Then you are a traitor to the weave. Earthside doubts. Daniel woke, screaming. His sheets were soaked, his head pounding as though someone had driven nails into his skull. He stumbled to the mirror, gripping the sink, staring at his reflection under the sterile light of his quarters. Something was different, just faintly. Beneath the skin of his forearm, a pattern shimmered like the outline of silver threads. It faded when he blinked, but he knew it was there. A knock at the door. Rourke. You okay in there? It was Keen. Daniel forced his voice steady. Yeah, just a bad dream. Keen chuckled through the door. You've got to stop eating before bed, man. But Daniel wasn't laughing. He pulled his sleeve down, covering the faint glow, and whispered to himself, they're real. Araya's decision back in the Eryxian vessel. Araya stood alone, before the council's chamber. Her glow was dim, her form flickering with exhaustion. You protected him? A voice thundered. Yes. You defied us. Yes. Her defiance echoed, but her fear was greater. She remembered Daniel's face when the Dark Ones had pressed their thoughts into him. Human minds were not meant to bear that weight, yet he had endured, bruised, shaken, but alive. One elder leaned forward, their glow flickering with suspicion. Why risk yourself for a creature of noise? Araya closed her eyes, and for a moment she saw Daniel confused, fragile, but stubbornly unbroken. His voice had been small against the roar of the lattice, yet it had not shattered, because, she said softly, he is not only noise, he is song. The lattice no longer felt like a dream. Each night, when Daniel closed his eyes, he knew he was not sleeping, he was traveling. His body remained on Earth, but his mind walked the endless silver web that bound worlds together, and every night, the pressure grew heavier. The dark Oryxians circled at the edges, their jagged light flashing with dissonance. They wanted him gone, erased, noise, silenced. Only Araya stood between them, her glow wrapped around his like a shield. But Daniel knew she could not hold them forever. Earth awakens it. Didn't take long for his colleagues to notice. He was pale, distracted, his pupils dilating strangely in low light. And when he touched the console, the Eryxian signal on their monitors shifted ever so slightly. As though answering him, Keen leaned across the desk, eyes narrowing. What aren't you telling us? Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. He could hear Araya whispering inside his skull. Not yet. If they know, they will break you. So he stayed silent. And in his silence, fear spread. Reports were filed. His access was restricted. He was watched. Daniel was no longer just a scientist. He was becoming the anomaly. The breaking point that night. The lattice shuddered like a storm-tossed sea. He appeared before him, dim and trembling. "They will come tonight," she said. "All of them. If you falter, they will cut you from the weave, and I will not be able to bring you back." Daniel's throat tightened. "Then tell me what I'm supposed to do?" Her crystalline eyes softened. She reached out, pressing her hand against his chest. "Do not fight them with noise. Listen, and answer with harmony." He wanted to laugh, to scream, to say I don't know how, but the lattice began to quake, and the jagged lights closed in. The trial the dark Oryxians struck first. Their voices slammed into him, searing his skull. Intruder, chaos, erased at Neil, staggered, his mind tearing at the edges. The pain was unbearable. His knees buckled. He felt his identity slipping, dissolving into static. But then Ira's voice, steady as a beacon. "Listen." Through the pain, Daniel forced himself to stop struggling. He listened. Beneath the roar of accusation, beneath the jagged violence, there was something else, a rhythm. Even in their anger, the Oryxians pulsed in a pattern, a structure. He took a trembling breath, and then he answered, not with words, but with thought, steady and deliberate. "I am not noise. I am pattern too." The lattice brightened. The silver threads quivered. The jagged voices faltered, uncertain. Uriah's glow flared, wrapping around him. "Do you see? He does not break. He joins." For the first time, the dark ones fell silent. After Mathwin, Daniel woke. He felt different. The shimmer beneath. His skin was gone, yet he knew it lingered deeper, etched into his bones. At the monitoring station, the Oryxian signal had changed. The perfect cold intervals were now woven with something new. Faint variations, echoes, almost like a melody. The scientists argued endlessly over what it meant, but Daniel already knew. It was his voice, his answer. That night, as he drifted into uneasy sleep, he heard Irea one last time. "You are proof that even noise can become song. Guard that truth, Daniel Rourke. For one day, your kind will need it." Her light faded, and the lattice dissolved. Epilogue: the Oryxian fleet never arrived in orbit. The signal remained, but softer now, less menacing, like a watchful lullaby across the stars. Historians and scientists would debate for centuries whether the encounter had ever been real. But Daniel knew, sometimes, when the world was quietest, he would close his eyes and swear he could still hear the faint patter of her voice. Not silence, not noise, something between, a song. The dreams came differently now. Where once the lattice had shimmered like an endless web of silver threads, vibrating gently with hidden harmony, Daniel found only turbulence. The strands twisted in agitation, their light fraying, as if something deep inside the structure resisted his presence. He drifted through the void, unsettled. Irea. Her glow appeared after a long hesitation, dimmer than usual. She looked strained, her form flickering between clarity and blur. "You should not be here tonight," she whispered, as though the lattice itself might be listening. Daniel tried to smile, despite the unease curling in his stomach. "That's becoming a theme. Every time I close my eyes, I end up here. Doesn't feel like I have much of a choice." Her expression tightened. The lattice bends to thought. It responds to will. Yet when you sleep, it drags you across the threshold, as though summoned. That is, wrong. Before Daniel could respond, a violent tremor rippled through the dream space. Several threads snapped like overstretched wires, sending bursts of light, spiraling into the void. The shockwave made him stumble backward. Disoriented, Irea caught his hand instinctively, her glow warming against his skin. The contact steadied him, though her face was troubled. They are trying to cut you out, she said grimly. Daniel blinked. They who? Your people? She hesitated. Not all, but enough. Another snap echoed in the distance, and Daniel thought he heard something else within the vibration's voices. Indistinct, angry, rising in a chorus of disapproval. They call you noise, given flesh, Irea murmured, lowering her gaze. To them, you are corruption in the song, a fracture in the silence. Daniel clenched his fists, fighting both fear and frustration. And what do you call me? Irea lifted her head, and for a heartbeat her glow softened. I call you, Daniel, awake, but not alone. He woke gasping, his sheets tangled, his body slick with sweat. The faint hum of machines in the research base surrounded him, but it felt wrong. Hollow-like background static that could no longer drown out the whisper of the lattice in his head. Pulling himself from bed, Daniel stumbled into the washroom. His reflection startled him. Faint marks ran across his chest and arms, pale, silvery lines, shaped almost like branching threads. They shimmered faintly under the fluorescent light before fading into his skin. He touched them, breath shaky. What the hell is happening to me? A knock rattled his door. Dr. Keene's voice came through, sharp and impatient. Rourke, you missed morning briefing. Get it together, man. Daniel swallowed hard, yanking on his jacket to cover the marks. Yeah, coming. But even as he spoke, he felt the faint brush of Irea's presence, lingering inside him, like a note that refused to fade. Descent among the Eryxians far across the stars. Irea stood before the council once more. You have let it go too far, one elder seethed, their glow jagged and hot like shards of flame. Already the lattice weakens. Threads break, storms rise, and still you defend the intruder. He is not an intruder, Irea replied, struggling to keep her tone calm. He did not choose this path. The lattice pulled him. Lies, another hissed. He corrupts you. Already your glow dims. Already your silence fractures. Irea's body wavered, but she stood firm. If silence cannot withstand one human voice, then perhaps it was never as strong as you believed. The chamber pulsed with outrage. For an Eryxian to question silence itself was near sacrilege. Yet the eldest among them raised a trembling hand, and the anger quieted. Perhaps, the elder intoned, we must listen before we cut. But mark this, Irea, if the lattice collapses, if all our voices are dragged into chaos, your human will not bear the blame. You will. The next dream that night, when Daniel returned to the lattice, the space felt thinner, as if stretched too far. Irea was waiting, weary but unbroken. They will not stop Daniel. To them, silence is survival. To let you remain is to gamble everything. Then why are you still here? He asked softly. She looked at him for a long time, the strands of light flickering between them. Because I have begun to wonder, she admitted, if silence is truly living, or merely enduring. The words hung between them, fragile and dangerous. And then the lattice convulsed again, louder, stronger. In the distance, a great section of threads unraveled all at once, dissolving into a storm of light. The sound was deafening, like 1,000 voices screaming in unison. Daniel clutched his head, falling to his knees. What is that? Irea's face filled with dread. It is the fracture. They are trying to tear you out. The dream dissolved around them, leaving only chaos, and Daniel woke with blood on his pillow, his nose bleeding freely, his ears ringing with a sound that wasn't quite his own heartbeat. Daniel's episodes became harder to hide. What started as restless nights turned into fainting spells, then violent seizures. At first, his colleagues assumed exhaustion, but when 2 other scientists in the research base began reporting vivid, shared dreams of silver threads, and faint glowing figures, the truth could no longer be contained. Reports circulated up the chain of command. By the end of the week, the military had dispatched observers. Colonel Harris, A man with steel-gray eyes and a voice that carried finality confronted Daniel directly. Your little dream project isn't just a project anymore. It's a potential breach. People are experiencing the same visions you are. Shared dreams, Rourke. Contagious dreams. Daniel clenched his fists. This isn't contagion. It's connection. Harris leaned closer. Whatever it is, the Pentagon wants answers. And if I find out you've been hiding anything, but Daniel barely heard him, because at that exact moment, a soft voice brushed across his mind. Daniel, I.R., Rhea, even in waking hours. She was slipping through. The next dream came as a storm. Daniel and Rhea stood together in the lattice when the entire structure convulsed. The threads glowed violently, bending, snapping, coiling like serpents. Rhea's face filled with dread. They are collapsing the strand. They mean to sever you forever. Daniel staggered as a jagged light split across the void, slicing to him. He felt the lattice tearing at his mind, trying to eject him. Pain lanced through his skull. I can't hold, he gasped. Rhea caught him, wrapping her glow around his fading form. Then I will hold you. The storm surged. Daniel's vision dissolved into whiteness, yet, in that whiteness, for an instant, he saw something else. Memories, but not his. He saw Oryxians standing on a world of crystal skies, their voices singing in unison. He saw war, silence imposed after bloodshed. He saw children taught to smother sound, to bury feeling, to become vessels of restraint. Then darkness. Daniel woke screaming. On his arms, glowing scars branched like latticework beneath his skin. In the Oryxian chamber, Rhea was accused. You have bound yourself to him, an elder declared. We feel his noise through you. I did not choose this bond, she argued. But it is not corruption, it is truth. He saw our past. He knows what silence has cost us, the council hissed, their lights flickering with fury. Then he must be destroyed. Rhea fled before they could strike, retreating deep into the lattice's hidden threads. Alone, she whispered into the void. Daniel, you must not sleep tonight. They will come for you in your dreams. But Daniel did sleep. And when he entered the lattice, he was ambushed. Dark Oryxian forms swarmed him, their voices sharp and jagged, pressing silence against his chest until he couldn't breathe. He thought he would die until Rhea's glow pierced the dark, shielding him. You will not touch him, she cried. Together, they ran. The fracture spread beyond dreams. Daniel collapsed during a classified UN hearing meant to assess the dream contagion. As medics rushed to him, auroras ripped across the sky outside the building and pulsing with rhythmic patterns. Power grids failed across 3 nations. The news spread instantly. A man's sleep was causing global anomalies. Scientists scrambled to explain. Some said mass hallucination. Others whispered alien interference. Daniel, half conscious, only heard Rhea's voice. The lattice is bleeding into your world. If they destroy you now, both realms may collapse. He whispered back, unaware that microphones caught his words. I'm not afraid to fall asleep anymore. I'm afraid to wake up. The next dream came with no storm, no fight, only stillness. Daniel and Rhea stood together in the ruins of the lattice, threads broken, dangling, shimmering faintly. It's dying, Daniel said. No, Rhea replied, her glow fierce. It is becoming. She reached for him. He hesitated only a moment before taking her hand. Their touch sent a wave rippling outward. Broken threads reattached, but differently, no longer perfect silence, no longer fragile harmony. Instead, they hummed with layered resonance, noise and silence woven together. Daniel gasped as music filled the void, chaotic, beautiful, alive. The lattice isn't meant to be silent, Rhea whispered. It's meant to sing, but the new web terrified the council, and Earth's governments saw only danger. Both sides prepared for war. The reborn lattice had side effects neither side expected. Across Earth, Ordinary people began slipping into shared dreams. Children described glowing figures. Soldiers spoke of silver webs. Entire families dreamed together, voices echoing in the same surreal space. Among the Eryxians, panic spread. The silence that had kept them safe was unraveling. Humans were pouring into their sacred dreamscape like uncontrolled rivers. Daniel and Araya stood in the center, watching frightened strangers blink into existence around them. They don't know what this is, Daniel murmured. They are part of it now, Araya said. The chorus rose clumsy, overlapping, imperfect. But it was no longer just two voices. It was many. The council acted swiftly. Araya has betrayed us, they declared. She opened the lattice to chaos. She must be exiled. Her glow dimmed, but she did not protest. Only when she was alone with Daniel did she speak. Daniel thought. It was over. 4 weeks after the final night, he slept without being dragged into the lattice. No storms, no battles, just ordinary dreams, mundane, fragile, fleeting. He woke each morning half expecting her voice, half hoping for silence, and always, the faint hum remained in the back of his mind, a song without words, steady and eternal. The only proof that it hadn't been madness. But then something shifted. It happened on a rain-heavy night. Daniel had dozed off at his desk, head resting on scattered notes about dream patterns, when his eyes fluttered shut. He didn't fall into ordinary dreams. He fell back. The lattice was there, whole, shimmering, singing. Its threads glowed brighter than he had ever seen, vibrating with a resonance that pulsed like a heartbeat. Daniel's breath caught. Araya. The silence stretched, and then faint, almost fragile a voice answered Daniel. He froze. It was her voice, thin, trembling, but unmistakable. Araya. He spun, searching the endless glow. You're alive. Not alive. Not as before. I am echo now, fragment woven into the song. But you hear me. You always hear me. Daniel staggered forward, reaching for the threads. You said you were gone. You said you burned yourself out. I did. And yet, something of me remained. Because you sang with me. Because you carried me. We are bound, Daniel. Even death could not sever it. Tears blurred his vision. For the first time in weeks, the ache in his chest cracked into relief. But joy twisted quickly to dread. Because the lattice was not calm. Its threads shuddered, bending under waves of interference. The song faltered, warping into broken notes. What's happening? Daniel whispered. Araya's echo dimmed. Others, Oryxians who survived the collapse. They crawl in the edges of silence, seeking to unmake what remains. I cannot stop them alone. Daniel clenched his fists. Then you're not alone. We'll fight them like before. The echo pulsed faintly, almost like a laugh. You never learn to rest, do you? Daniel managed a broken smile. Not when you're still here, asterisk, asterisk. If I go, they will sever what remains. You must decide, will you let me fall into silence, or will you follow me into exile? On Earth, Daniel faced the same ultimatum. Military officials demanded he submit to isolation, to prevent more contamination. Both worlds, both sides, were ready to cut them away. Daniel looked at Araya, her hand trembling in his. I'm done letting others decide who I am. If you fall, I fall. She shone with quiet light. Then we fall together. The lattice trembled like a living thing, on the edge of collapse. Radical Eryxians launched an assault, trying to rip apart the threads once and for all. At the same time, human authorities prepared neural weapons designed to sever dream connections permanently. Caught in the middle, Daniel and Araya anchored themselves at the heart of the lattice. Voices swarmed around them, angry, afraid, desperate. Silence clashed with noise, harmony with chaos. The dream space screamed. But Daniel and Araya held fast. Their bond pulsed outward, stabilizing the lattice through shared trust, not silence, not noise. a balance. For the first time in Eryxian history, and human history alike, the lattice did not belong to one people. It belonged to all. The final choice came quietly. If we stay, Araya said, we will never wake again. We will become anchors. Dream and flesh half dissolved. Daniel nodded slowly. If we don't, everything falls apart. Their eyes met. No words were needed. They stepped forward together. Into the heart of the lattice, light consumed them, not destruction, but transformation. Their bodies became threads. Their thoughts became resonance. They were no longer only human or Eryxian. They were bridge, bond, harmony. On Earth, Daniel's body never woke. In the Eryxian halls, Araya's glow never returned. But in the lattice their voices endured, and when children human and Eryxian alike dreamed in years to come, they swore they sometimes heard two voices guiding them, whispering softly in unison. Silence is not the absence of sound. Noise is not the absence of meaning. Together, we are the song. The next night, Daniel returned willingly. He didn't need the lattice to pull him anymore. He sought it, lay down, closed his eyes, and slipped into its glow, like stepping into a second home. And waiting for him, shadows. The far edge of the lattice, the threads frayed into darkness. Their jagged forms gathered. Not hundreds, not an army, just a few. But they pulsed with a different energy, stronger, hungrier. Survivors of the silence. Their voices cut through the song like knives. Human fracture, noise-born corruption. The song will end. We will erase it. Daniel stood taller, though his throat tightened with fear. You couldn't erase me before, and you won't now. The figures surged forward. Before they could reach him, light flared at his side. Not Irenat, as she had been, but her echo. A faint silhouette of glow, incomplete yet unyielding. He does not stand alone. Her presence steadied him. Daniel drew a breath, feeling the hum of the lattice fill his chest. He began to sing not the raw, broken song of grief, but something steadier. A thread of defiance woven into melody. The shadows recoiled, hissing, but they didn't shatter. These Eryxians were different. Stronger, adapted. They pressed back, their silence slamming into his voice like a tidal wave. Daniel faltered, stumbling to one knee. Irea can't. Her echo bent close, her glow dimming but firm. Then do not sing alone. Call them. Daniel blinked. Call who? The humans, the dreamers, the countless minds who hum in sleep, who murmur in silence. You are not the only voice, Daniel. You never were. Call them. The idea struck him like lightning. Terrifying, impossible, beautiful. He closed his eyes, reached not for memory, but for connection. For every sleeping human on Earth, drifting in fragile dreams. He let the hum of the lattice bleed outward, seeking them, and in the distance, he heard its soft, broken notes. Millions of tiny voices. People murmuring in their sleep, sighing, humming, dreaming. A chorus too vast to silence. Daniel's voice rose, carrying theirs. The lattice blazed with sound, every thread vibrating with collective resonance. The survivors of silence screamed as cracks split their forms. They lashed out desperately, but the song overwhelmed them, tearing their silence apart. One by one, they shattered into dust. When the last was gone, the lattice stilled. The song lingered, fuller now, richer, as if infused with the voices of an entire planet. Daniel collapsed, chest heaving. Iraya's echo bent close, her glow warm. You did it. No, Daniel whispered hoarsely. We did. All of us. She pulsed faintly, steady and proud. Then the song lives on. Not because of me, not even because of you, but because humanity itself has joined the harmony. Daniel lifted his head, gazing across the endless lattice. For the first time, it didn't feel fragile. It felt alive, and he knew this was no ending. It was the beginning of something larger. Daniel didn't sleep for 3 days after that night, not because of fear, not even exhaustion, but because every time he closed his eyes, he felt the millions of faint threads tugging at him, millions of voices humming softly in their dreams. Humanity had touched the lattice, even if they didn't understand it. It wasn't just his burden anymore. And yet, the weight only grew. The lattice had changed. No longer a quiet realm of Araya and her people, no longer a battlefield scarred by silence. It pulsed now with the dreams of Earth itself. Colors richer, threads thicker, shapes forming from the overlapping harmonies of millions of minds. Daniel stood at its heart one night, gazing at the new patterns. Towers of light rose where threads converged. Rivers of song curved and bent, flowing like auroras. Iraya's echo shimmered beside him, faint but steadier now. The chorus seemed to strengthen her, as though every human dream gave her more shape. "They come without knowing," she said softly. "Dreamers, who hum in their sleep, who sigh in sorrow, who laugh in joy. They bring their noise here without intention and yet it weaves strength." Daniel nodded slowly. "It means the lattice isn't just alien anymore, it's ours too." But, even as he said it, dread gnawed at him. Because where there was song, there was silence waiting, and silence would hear this new chorus, as if in answer. A tremor ran through the lattice. The threads shivered, bending, as if a storm pressed against its edges. Daniel stiffened. "They're coming again." Iraya's echo dimmed. "Not the survivors you fought. Something older. Something deeper." The chorus has awakened, and now it has been noticed. Daniel's chest tightened. Noticed by who? The glow around her flickered by the ones who first unmade my people. The true architects of silence, the Eryxian core. The words chilled him. Core. The words chilled him. Core. Not soldiers, not fragments. The origin. The hive that births silence itself. If it awakens, it will not come with whispers. It will come with an ending. Daniel's throat went dry. He had barely survived the survivors. Now there was that. But then, faintly, like a heartbeat, he felt the chorus stir. Millions of voices, soft and unsteady, but present. He closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. Humanity was with him. Earth was with him. He opened his eyes and looked at Iraya's glow. "Then we won't wait for them to come. If the core is real, we go to it." Her echo flared brighter, startled. "You would seek silence itself." Daniel's jaw tightened. "If we wait, it comes for Earth. If we move first, maybe we stand a chance." The lattice trembled again, threads straining as though listening. And somewhere, deep in the endless glow, a new pattern began to form. A direction. A path. Iraya's echo whispered, half fear, half awe. Then the chorus marches to war. The path was not a road, not a gate, not anything Daniel's waking mind could describe. It was a fold in the lattice itself. Threads bent, weaving into a spiral of light that seemed to stretch forever inward. From its edges bled a darkness too deep to be shadow, a quiet so absolute that it made Daniel's teeth ache just to look at it. The others could feel it too. Humanity's chorus quivered, dissonant notes flickering like frightened children in a storm. Millions of sleepers shivered without knowing why, tossing in beds, whispering in their dreams. Iraya's echo stood at the spiral's threshold, her glow pale. "This is the maw, where silence feeds." Daniel swallowed hard. "This is where we're going. There is no choice. The core does not travel, it consumes. If it stirs, the lattice collapses into it. Your Earth would vanish into hush." Daniel's gut twisted. He glanced back at the towering symphony of threads, glowing stronger than ever with humanity's dream chorus. It was beautiful, fragile, and alive. And it depended on him. He drew a long breath. "Then we go." Iraya's light flickered, uncertain. But when Daniel stepped forward, she moved with him. The descent spiral pulled them down. Threads stretched thin, humming in protest as the quiet scraped across them. Every step made Daniel feel heavier, as though gravity itself had sharpened into claws. His breath fogged. The air, or whatever passed for it in this place, grew colder with every layer. He felt the chorus dimming behind him, voices muffled, as though they feared to follow. At last he could sense only a handful, faint notes pressing close, loyal despite their fear. A child's laugh, a mother's lullaby, a soldier's steady hum. Tiny fragments of earth that had refused to let him go alone. Irea drifted beside him, her voice like wind through hollow stone. Already it tastes us. Already it reaches. Daniel clenched his fists. Then let it know we're not afraid. But the truth was, he was afraid. Terrified, and the Ma knew it. The silence pressed harder, crawling into his ears, his bones, his thoughts. His heartbeat slowed, and for a moment, he thought it might stop altogether. Then, a scream. It wasn't his. It wasn't Irea's. It was the chorus. Millions of voices crying out at once, as if in pain. Daniel staggered. What's happening? Irea's glow quivered violently. The core has noticed them. It feeds, already. Your world hums too loud. It will silence them first. Daniel's chest seized. Earth, the millions of dreamers who had joined him, their lives were being gnawed at from afar? No. His voice cracked, breaking in the oppressive quiet. You want them? You take me instead. The Ma pulsed. The silence bent toward him like a predator sniffing prey. For an instant, he thought he would be swallowed whole. But then the chorus surged, not in fear, not in despair, but in defiance. The lullaby rose, stronger. The soldier's hum steadied, into a march. The child's laugh rang out like a bell. Daniel gasped, tears stinging his eyes. They weren't giving up. They were fighting. He stood tall, facing the spiral's endless dark. You hear that? That's Earth, and we're not done singing yet. The Ma shivered. For the first time, the silence recoiled. Irea's echo flared bright awe in her voice. The core has never been challenged, and yet, it listens. Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we go deeper, all the way to its heart. Together, they stepped into the Ma, and the spiral closed around them. The spiral did not end. Or rather, Daniel could not tell if it had ended, because the transition was so subtle. One moment he was descending through a vortex of threads, and hush, and the next, he was standing in a vast plain of nothingness, but not empty. The space stretched endlessly, an ocean of stillness, thick and heavy like the bottom of a black sea. Every step sent faint ripples outward, soundless waves that dissolved into nothing. And at the center, pulsing faintly, was it, the core. It was not a shape. It was not a voice. It was a wound in reality, a collapsing knot of silence that seemed to eat the threads of the lattice themselves. Where it pulsed, threads frayed and vanished, their glow snuffed out like dying embers. Daniel's chest constricted, each breath like swallowing ice. Irea's glow dimmed, trembling. This is where my people ended. They came here once. They thought they could fight it. None returned. Daniel stared, throat dry. And we're supposed to stop that. The core pulsed again, louder this time. A wave of silence blasted through him, and his knees buckled. For a moment, he thought. He couldn't feel his own thoughts. Then faint, like sparks in the dark, the chorus stirred. The lullaby, the laugh, the hum. Humanity was still with him. He planted his feet and forced himself upright. We don't fight it by strength. We fight it by refusing to vanish, by being louder. The core seemed to shudder, threads snapping as though in anger. And then came the voices, not of Earth, not of Ira's people, but of something older. Whispers layered upon whispers, hollow and vast, echoing through the silence. You hum, you cling, you resist the inevitable. Daniel froze. It was the core itself, The silence spoke. The voice was not one, but countless. Male, female, child, ancient, all woven into one dissonant murmur. Noise cannot endure. All patterns unravel. All songs end. I am not destruction. I am completion. Daniel's skin prickled. Completion. You erase everything you touch. Not erase. Fulfill. Noise is struggle. Silence is peace. You resist because you fear stillness. Yet stillness is truth. The words pressed into his mind like cold iron. For a moment, Daniel felt the temptation, an end to struggle, an end to pain, the warmth of his bed, the thought of letting go. But then a faint laugh rippled in the chorus, a child's laugh. Daniel blinked, shaking his head. Peace. That's not peace. That's nothing. And we're not nothing. We're stories. We're voices. We're alive. The core pulsed, threads snapping violently. Then you will break. You and your world. Iria's echo flared her voice, cutting through. We did not break. Even in silence, we linger. Even in hush, our echoes live. And now humanity joins us. You cannot end what refuses to be forgotten. The core shuddered. For the first time, Daniel thought he sensed something. Not anger, but hesitation. He stepped closer, heart hammering. You call it completion. I call it surrender. And Earth doesn't surrender. Not to silence, not to you. The chorus swelled behind him, voices growing stronger. A billion sleepers whispering, laughing, sighing. The noise of life itself. The core rippled violently, waves of quiet smashing, outward. But the chorus held. Daniel shouted over the hush, pouring everything into his words. You want us gone? Then silence this, the chorus of Earth. The lattice blazed with light, and the voices surged into the core. For the first time in eternity. Silence trembled.